Welcome to our deep dive into the art of finding inner peace. You guys have given us some really interesting excerpts to unpack,
Yeah.
and I'm really excited to dive into these with you today. The book's big idea is that true happiness,
Mm-hmm.
it isn't found in, external things outside of ourselves,
Right.
but it's more about cultivating this inner peace. And today, we're going to explore some really fascinating concepts. Like, we'll be talking about the illusion of possession.
Right.
We'll be thinking of our minds as gardens,
Interesting.
the power of simplicity, and even the magic behind mindfulness. And I'm joined by my expert, ready to kind of help us, connect all these dots.
Absolutely.
So what are your initial thoughts on the excerpts, expert?
Well, what's so fascinating to me is how the book jumps right into this idea of the illusion of possession.
Okay.
And, it's this idea that clinging tightly to anything, whether that's, possessions, relationships, even ideas, it can be the root of suffering.
Mm.
Because everything in life changes.
Yeah.
Everything's impermanent.
Right.
Attachment just sets us up for, disappointment and, hurt.
Yeah.
The book uses this really powerful analogy. It's like trying to hold sand in your hand.
Okay.
The tighter you squeeze,
Uh-huh.
the more slips through your fingers.
That really resonates with me. I know there have been times in my life where I've definitely clung to things, whether that's relationships,
Mm-hmm.
career goals, even certain beliefs.
Yeah.
And it's like the harder I tried to hold on, the more frustrated I became.
Right.
It's almost like you're just making things harder for yourself. So it makes me wonder, what are some of the things that maybe aren't as obvious
Right.
that we might be clinging to that prevent us from finding that inner peace?
Well, the book highlights a few that I think many people can relate to.
Okay.
It mentions clinging to the past, replaying old mistakes or longing for, a time that's gone.
Yeah.
We can also cling to a certain idea of who we are, resisting change and growth because it challenges our sense of self.
Right.
And then there's, clinging to outcomes, trying to control, everything and everyone around us, which, as we all know, just leads to a lot of stress and anxiety.
It's like we're almost creating our own suffering
Yeah,
by resisting the natural flow of life.
absolutely.
And the book also talks about how we can even cling to like relationship dynamics,
Right.
expecting people to never change or to always behave in ways that fit our expectations. But people do change, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. And, those expectations can create a lot of friction in our relationships. And the book emphasizes that, true connection
Mm-hmm.
comes from accepting people for who they are, not who we want them to be.
Right.
It even suggests that, letting go of relationships that aren't serving us
Mm-hmm.
can actually make space for healthier, and more fulfilling connections to come into our lives.
That's huge.
Mm.
It reminds me of that quote, sometimes letting go is an act of far greater power than defending or hanging on. Have you ever experienced this in your life, expert?
Mm-hmm. I have. And,
Like letting go of something that felt really hard at the time,
mm-hmm.
but, ultimately it led to something more positive.
Yeah, it's not always easy, but
Right.
I think there's a lot of wisdom in learning when to hold on and when to let go. But moving on, the book's next section, letting go of negative thoughts, really caught my eye. It compares our minds to gardens
Okay.
that can become overrun with weeds, weeds of negativity,
Well, I like that.
if left unchecked.
That's a great analogy. I mean, our minds are constantly generating these thoughts.
Right.
Some helpful, some not so much. It can feel like we're at the mercy of these thoughts, especially the negative ones.
Mm-hmm.
How does the book suggest we kind of approach these mental weeds?
Well, the book emphasizes awareness,
Okay.
as that first step,
Okay.
because we can't let go of something if we don't even realize we're holding on to it.
Right.
It's like carrying around, a heavy bag without realizing it's weighing you down. Once we're aware of that burden, we can choose to put it down.
Right.
So noticing those negative thoughts, acknowledging them without judgment, that's key.
I've heard that phrase, name it to tame it, when it comes to managing difficult emotions. Is that kind of what the book's getting at here?
Yeah.
Like by simply acknowledging and naming the thought, we're already starting to loosen its grip.
Exactly. And then the book dives into specific techniques
Okay.
for actually, letting go of those thoughts. One that really stood out to me was this practice of breath awareness.
Okay.
Sounds pretty simple, but it's incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
When you notice those negative thoughts creeping in,
Mm-hmm.
you take a deep breath. And as you exhale, just visualize those thoughts dissolving like mist.
That's something I've actually tried before, and I do find it so helpful,
Yeah.
especially for calming anxiety.
Hmm.
The book also shares a really powerful Zen story, right?
Yeah.
About the two monks and the woman being carried across the river. Could you maybe share that with our listener?
Of course, of course. So there were two monks
Okay.
traveling together, and they came to a river where a woman was struggling to cross.
Okay.
Now, the older monk, without hesitation, picked her up and carried her across.
Okay.
They continued on their journey, and hours later,
Mm-hmm.
the younger monk, clearly bothered by this, said, "Brother, why did you carry that woman? We are monks. We shouldn't touch women."
Yeah.
The older monk simply replied, "I put her down hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?"
That is such a good reminder. You know, how we often hold on to burdens,
Yeah.
whether that's negative thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
past hurts, grudges,
Right.
long after they've served their purpose.
Yeah.
You know, it can feel like we're carrying that woman across the river
Right.
for hours, days, even years. But what if we just put her down, you know?
Exactly. That's the invitation the book is offering, isn't it?
Right.
To recognize what we're holding on to and to just choose to let it go.
Yeah.
But as you said, it's not always easy. The book acknowledges that a lot of our negativity comes from either dwelling on the past
Mm-hmm.
or, worrying about the future. And we just get caught in these thought loops
Yeah.
that prevent us from experiencing that peace
Right.
that comes from being present in the now.
It's so easy to get caught up in those thought loops. But I love how this book doesn't just point out the problem. It actually offers solutions.
Yeah.
Like it encourages us to shift our focus from what we lack to what we already have. Which brings us to the next section, the power of simplicity. What jumped out at you from this part of the book, expert?
It's interesting. What's fascinating is how the book connects complexity with restlessness.
Okay.
We live in a world that's constantly telling us we need more.
Right.
More possessions, more achievements, more experiences.
More, right.
Yeah. But the book suggests that by simplifying our lives,
Okay.
both mentally and physically,
Okay.
we can create space for inner peace to kind of emerge.
It's such a counterintuitive idea. We're conditioned to believe that happiness comes from adding more to our lives.
Yeah.
But maybe, just maybe, it's about subtracting.
Yeah.
Letting go of the things that are weighing us down, both physically and mentally.
Exactly. And the book doesn't advocate for becoming a minimalist monk or anything like that.
Right.
Although it does use that as an example.
Okay.
It's more about becoming aware of what truly matters in our lives.
Mhm.
And then letting go of those things that are just cluttering up our space and our minds.
So how do we even go about simplifying our lives?
Mm-hmm.
I know for me, when there's a lot of physical clutter, it's like my mind feels cluttered too.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are some of the things that the book suggests, like some concrete things we can do?
Well, I think it starts with just being aware of what we're bringing into our lives,
Okay.
both physically and mentally. Like, are we constantly bombarded by information and commitments and possessions
Right. Yeah.
that don't actually serve us?
Yeah.
The book encourages us to be mindful, about what we consume, what we commit to, and what we allow into our physical space.
It's about making conscious choices.
Yeah.
Instead of just being on autopilot.
Yes.
It's like really stopping and asking yourself, does this add value to my life?
Right.
Or is this just more noise and more clutter?
Exactly. And then the book dives into, more specific practices.
Okay.
It talks about letting go of unnecessary thoughts,
Okay.
those worries, anxieties, judgments that are just constantly swirling around in our minds.
Mm.
And it encourages us to release the need for external approval,
Oh,
that constant seeking of validation from others.
I've so been there. It's
Yeah.
exhausting.
It is.
Like that need to please everyone and get everyone to like you.
Yeah.
But the book is suggesting that true inner peace comes from finding that validation within ourselves. Is that right?
That's a key point,
Yeah.
And then there's the practice of slowing down.
Okay.
Instead of rushing through life on autopilot. The book encourages us to do one thing at a time and just be present in each moment.
Yeah.
Whether it's enjoying a cup of tea or having a conversation or even just taking a walk. The idea is to savor the experience without rushing on to the next thing.
It's like finding those pockets of stillness
Yeah.
in a world that's just telling us to go, go, go.
Team.
I have to admit, I struggle with slowing down.
Mm-hmm.
But when I do, it really does feel like a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
For my soul.
I think many of us can relate to that. It's
Okay.
a practice, not a destination.
Yeah.
Speaking of practices, this beautifully transitions into the book's discussion of mindfulness.
Ooh, yes.
So, how do you think the book defines mindfulness? And why is it so essential on this journey toward inner peace?
I'm so fascinated by mindfulness. I've tried meditating here and there, and I find it really helpful, but I'm always eager to learn more. What does the book have to say about it?
Well, the book presents mindfulness as this way to quiet the constant chatter of our minds and truly experience the present moment without judgment. It's about being aware of our thoughts and feelings and sensations as they arise without getting swept away by them.
So it's not about emptying our minds completely,
Right.
which is what I used to think meditation was about.
Yeah.
It's more about just observing those thoughts and feelings without getting caught up in them.
Exactly. And the book emphasizes that mindfulness isn't just something we do on a meditation cushion.
Right.
It can be a way of being that we can cultivate in every moment of our lives.
So we can practice mindfulness while we're walking, while we're eating, even while we're working, even while we're doing the dishes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The book highlights a few everyday activities that we can turn into mindfulness practices.
Okay.
For example, mindful breathing is one of the simplest yet most powerful techniques.
Okay.
It's just about taking a moment to simply notice your breath and feel the air coming in and out of your body.
It sounds so simple, but I can imagine that it can be really grounding, especially when our minds are racing. What are some other ways the book suggests we practice mindfulness?
Well, it talks about mindful walking,
Okay.
which is about moving through the world with a sense of presence
Okay.
and awareness. Instead of rushing from point A to point B, it's about paying attention to the sensations of walking, the feeling of your feet on the ground, the movement of your body, the sights and sounds around you.
It's about bringing that awareness to those everyday actions.
Yeah.
Right? It's like turning them into these opportunities to really connect with the present moment.
Exactly. Yeah.
What are some other mindfulness practices that the book mentions?
Well, there's mindful eating, which is about slowing down and savoring each bite
Okay.
and paying attention to the flavors, textures of your food
Mhm.
without distractions. And then there's mindful listening,
Okay.
truly being present with someone when they're speaking and putting aside our own thoughts and judgment and just, really receiving what they have to say.
It's such a powerful practice,
Yeah.
especially in our age of distractions. It's so easy to get caught up in our own thoughts
Yeah.
and miss what the other person is trying to communicate. I love how this book encourages us to bring that mindful awareness to just every aspect of our lives.
It really does.
Yeah.
And this focus on appreciating the present moment connects beautifully with the book's emphasis on gratitude.
Yes.
So how do you think gratitude plays into the journey of finding inner peace?
I'm such a big believer in gratitude. I found that when I make an effort to focus on what I'm grateful for,
Yeah.
it just kind of shifts my whole perspective.
Mm-hmm.
It's like those negative thoughts just don't have as much power to drag me down.
Right.
So what does the book say about that connection, like between gratitude and inner peace?
Well, the book points out that gratitude is this powerful practice
Okay.
that can shift our perspective from one of lack to one of abundance. So when we focus on what we're grateful for, we start to see the good
Yeah.
in everything, even in challenging situations. And that shift in perspective
Yeah.
can create a really profound sense of peace and contentment.
It's amazing, just how focusing on gratitude can shift your entire outlook.
Yeah.
It's like you're training your brain to see the good, even when things are, tough.
Right.
The book gives us some really practical ways to cultivate gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
Did any of those stand out to you, expert?
One that really resonated with me was the idea of starting each day with a gratitude reflection.
Okay.
Like before you even get out of bed,
Okay.
just take a couple moments to think of 3 things you're grateful for.
Okay.
And they don't have to be big things.
Yeah.
It can be small things like the warmth of your blanket or a delicious cup of coffee waiting for you.
Yeah.
Or even just the fact that you woke up, healthy and breathing. It's about starting your day by acknowledging the good that's already there.
I love that. It's so easy to wake up and immediately start thinking about all the stuff you have to do today
Right.
and to start stressing.
Yeah.
But to take a few moments to actually think about what you're grateful for, that's such a good way to start the day.
Mm.
The book also mentions keeping a gratitude journal.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
The idea is to, at the end of each day, Just jot down a few things that you're grateful for.
Yeah, okay.
It could be something as simple as a delicious meal or a kind gesture from someone you met
Yeah.
or a beautiful sunset.
Yeah.
It's just about training our minds to notice those good things
Right.
that happen each day, no matter how small.
It's like you're creating this collection of all the good things in your life.
Yes.
And I can imagine that would be really helpful to look back on when you're having a tough day.
Yeah.
Did the book mention any other ways to kind of cultivate gratitude?
Yes, it emphasizes the importance of expressing gratitude to others.
Mm-hmm.
Like a simple thank you can go a long way. But the book also encourages us to maybe write a heartfelt letter
Wow.
to someone who's made a difference in our lives.
Yeah.
Or, to make an effort to show appreciation to the people that we often take for granted.
That is so important. It's so easy to assume that people know that we appreciate them,
Mm-hmm.
but to actually take the time to say it,
Yes.
this makes such a big difference.
Yes.
Both for the person receiving it
Mm-hmm.
and for us. All this talk about gratitude,
Yeah.
I feel like it really ties into the book's message about embracing change.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that connection?
Well, the book reminds us that impermanence is just a natural part of life. Everything is constantly changing, evolving, transforming. And it's when we resist that change,
Mm-hmm.
when we cling to how things used to be, that's when we start to experience suffering.
Right.
But gratitude allows us to appreciate the present moment, even when it's different from what we expected or what we hoped for.
It's like that saying, life is a series of natural and spontaneous changes. Don't resist them. That only creates sorrow. Let reality be reality.
Yeah.
Let things flow naturally forward in whatever way they like.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of us struggle with embracing change.
Oh, yeah.
I know I do. It can be scary
Mm-hmm.
to let go of what's familiar,
Yeah.
even when we know that we need to.
Right.
So what does the book say about how to deal with that?
Well, the book acknowledges that struggle, and it offers some really helpful guidance. The first step is just recognizing that change is inevitable.
Okay.
No matter how much we try to control things, we can't stop the flow of life.
Yeah.
And once we accept that, I think it becomes a little easier to just surrender to the process.
It's about shifting our mindset from fear and resistance to more acceptance, even curiosity.
Right.
What else does this book suggest?
Well, it emphasizes the importance of staying present. A lot of our anxiety about change comes from worrying about the future.
Right.
But if we can stay grounded in the present moment, it's much easier to navigate those ups and downs that come with change.
Right.
And the practices that we've already talked about, like mindfulness and gratitude, can be so helpful in that process.
It's all connected.
It is.
Mindfulness helps us stay present. Gratitude helps us to appreciate the present moment, even when it's tough.
Yeah.
Are there any other key points about embracing change that stood out to you?
Yes. The book talks about letting go of old identities.
Okay.
Who we were yesterday is not who we are today, and who we are today is not who we'll be tomorrow.
Right.
It's about allowing ourselves to evolve and grow without holding on to a fixed sense of self.
Such an important reminder, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're not these static beings. We're constantly changing. We're constantly becoming. And when we embrace that, when we let go of the need to hold on to that fixed identity, it's like we open ourselves up to a world of possibilities.
Exactly. And finally, the book explores the power of silence, which might seem like a strange topic to bring up,
Okay.
in the book about finding inner peace. But it makes this argument that in a world that's just constantly bombarding us with noise and stimulation, silence can be this really powerful act of self-care.
That makes so much sense to me.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get caught up in this constant stream of information and entertainment and social media and everything.
Right.
But I've noticed that when I intentionally create some quiet time for myself,
Yeah.
whether it's through meditation or spending time in nature or just unplugging from technology, there's this peace and this clarity that I don't experience anywhere else.
Yeah.
It's so powerful.
The book suggests that silence is not just about the absence of external noise. It's also about quieting the internal chatter of our minds.
Right.
And it's in those moments of stillness that we can truly connect with our deepest selves, and tap into a wellspring of wisdom and peace that's always there.
It's like that quote, "In the silence of the heart, God speaks." But I think a lot of us struggle with silence.
Yeah.
Like, it can be uncomfortable to just sit with our thoughts and feelings without those distractions.
Right.
So what does the book say about how we can overcome that discomfort?
Well, it acknowledges that silence can be challenging at first.
Right.
It can bring up all sorts of uncomfortable emotions or unresolved issues that we've been avoiding, but it encourages us to be curious and compassionate towards those feelings,
Well,
to see them as a part of us and to give them the attention that they deserve.
so it's not about trying to silence those thoughts and feelings completely.
No.
It's more about just observing them without judgment,
Yeah.
letting them come and go
Ex-
without getting caught up in them.
Exactly. And the book gives some tips
Okay.
for cultivating more silence in our lives.
Okay.
Like it suggests starting the day with a few minutes of quiet reflection, before checking our phones or jumping into our to-do lists.
Okay.
It also encourages us to incorporate silent moments throughout the day.
Okay.
Like, maybe eating a meal in silence or taking a walk without our headphones or even just pausing for a moment before we speak.
Those are all great ideas.
Yeah.
I'm going to try incorporating those. It's amazing to me how this book just kind of brings together all these different practices.
Yeah.
Letting go,
Yeah.
mindfulness, gratitude, embracing change, and cultivating silence. They all seem to work together to create a more peaceful and fulfilling life.
And what's so fascinating is that inner peace, it's not just about feeling good. It also affects how we interact with others.
Yeah.
When we cultivate that inner peace, we naturally become more patient, more compassionate, more present in our interactions.
That's like that saying, peace begins with a smile.
Yeah.
When we're at peace with ourselves, it's easier to share that with everyone else.
Absolutely.
So if there's one thing that you take away from this deep dive today,
Yeah.
it's that inner peace isn't some destination. It's a journey. It's a lifelong practice of self-discovery and growth, and just cultivating those qualities that bring us closer to our true selves.
Beautifully said.
And I think the biggest takeaway is that inner peace isn't something that you just find, out in the world.
Yeah.
It's something that we create, moment by moment, choice by choice.
Yes.
So what small step will you take today to walk the path of peace?
That's a good question.
We'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, keep diving deep and keep seeking that inner stillness.